It's 2025, you're a US citizen, and you're in the market for a new car. Who are you gonna buy from? For those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So as you might be able to tell from my my top today, it's the first day of classes at UGA, and I don't have time to do this episode. It's early morning, but I'm gonna try to squeeze it in today because I think this is a bit too important. This is a wake-up call that happened to me, and it's a wake-up call that needs to go out to the administration in the US and Germany at the very least, probably also in Tokyo as well. So what am I talking about? Well, this episode is inspired by Best in Tesla. Lars, you're amazing. He did a really good episode yesterday about the multiple disruption curves and how everybody is way off in their predictions about EV adoption in the next decade. So I'm gonna link his video in the description. I'm also gonna steal one graphic from him, so thank you in advance for that. But anyway, so I'm not gonna go back through the math. You can watch his video and you can agree or disagree with his numbers. You know, that's up to you. But anyway, I'm going to kind of go with his numbers. So I'm gonna show you this graphic. This is his S-curve adoption based on current data and a generalized S-curve trend, and not even that steep of a one. It's actually less steep than what's going on in Europe right now and also in China. But what you can see from this S-curve is that by 2025, we're at 80% EV adoption, or somewhere north of 60 million EV cars being produced each year, because the general market is about 70 to 75 million cars right now. So here's the question then, who is going to be selling these cars, right? So you've got a market where you've got a whole bunch of ICE or internal combustion engine cars being sold right now, right? 70 to 75 million of those things. And then you've got in the order of 5 million or 6 million EVs were sold in 2020, and probably it's gonna be closer to 10 million EVs sold this year. So who is going to sell you those, right? We've got 50 million cars that we've got to make up for in 4 years. That is a really, really rapid rate of production. Now, the S-curve is a fact of life, right? Pretty much every disruptive adoption that's ever happened has happened in a roughly S-curve fashion. And the trend in general is that it's gotten faster and faster over the years as we've gone more and more kind of electronic and virtual. But what of course is standing in the way of this is that cars are not like phones or tablets. And I'm not saying they're not incredibly difficult to build, but they take very, very little, resources, right? To build a phone is like this big, and it does take a lot of rare earth metals and a lot of plastics and very, very interesting materials and such, but it doesn't take a lot of them per phone. A car, on the other hand, or a truck or whatever, is a lot of material, including all the batteries. The batteries are a massive part of that, but also just, the frame of the car and the chassis and all of the electronics and the copper wiring that you have to put inside, which costs so much these days. So anyway, you've got something that's very difficult to build, but I think that if the motivation is there, if the general public says we want this and only this, people will pivot to building that. So what's the problem? Well, let's take the US and Germany and Japan. All three of those countries have a massive ICE car, building facility, right? So you've got GM, you've got Toyota, you've got Volkswagen, you've got Ford, et cetera, et cetera. So basically the problem here is that I do not believe any legacy manufacturer, anyone who's currently making mostly ICE cars, is going to be able to pivot fast enough to be able to produce a significant amount of EVs by 2025, which is going to leave them in a niche and rapidly shrinking market, right? So by 2030, we could easily be at 95+% EV cars, or at least plug-in EV cars. Now, of course, the legacy manufacturers do have a little bit of a wedge there with plug-in hybrid vehicles, but they're really a bad compromise. They're kind of the worst of both worlds. They have small batteries, they don't run that long on the battery, and then you have to deal with all the crap of an ICE car engine. And believe me, after owning my Tesla Model Y, there is no way I would want to go back to an ICE car and have to deal with all the crap of an internal combustion engine and the dirtiness of it, not just the pollution and stuff, but just the maintenance and all that. It's just a nightmare. So, that's just a stopgap at the most. And so maybe that pushes that back by a couple of years, but let's take a look at why these companies are not going to be able to pivot. And everyone says, oh yeah, they can. And believe believe me, in the United States, the Biden administration is backing the wrong horse, so you guys better wake up. I'm dead serious about this, so listen to me. If anybody in the administration happens to pay attention to my little YouTube channel, you are dead wrong about this. The problem with legacy auto manufacturers is, number one, they're making ICE cars right now, so they're tooled and their supply chain and everything is for ICE cars. To pivot that, especially with a giant ship, so right, you're thinking about a tanker or something like that, to turn that thing around, you're gonna end up stuck in the Suez Canal is what's gonna happen. So they're just not gonna be able to pivot that fast. Even if they could, they are completely crippled by unions. Again, I am a big union fan. I think they have a very important place. I haven't gotten a raise here at Georgia in 3 years, so speaking of that, government of Georgia, you might want to give your faculty a raise. It would be a good idea. It would be nice to have. But since we don't have a union in this state and we have no collective bargaining power, we can't go, we want a cost of living increase. But anyway, the problem with unions for the automakers specifically is there's a lot of old people, right? There was a huge boom in auto manufacturing, and now you've got people who are either retired or close to retiring, and all they're going to do is be sucking down resources. The automotive industry has to keep paying these people after they retire. They don't have 401ks, they actually have, retirement that's paid for by these companies. That is a gigantic drain, and effectively what's happening here is, between that and the fact that they're always operating at bad margins and stuff, every legacy auto manufacturer I know about is in debt at this point. So that is a huge problem. Being in debt when you have to pivot quickly and nimbly is just not going to happen. And the third problem, of course, is dealerships. Traditional dealership models are going to slow all of this down because they have no incentive to sell EV cars. They don't make money off of them because they make money on service. People have talked about this to death, but basically you've got 3 huge reasons all going against any legacy auto manufacturer in any of these countries, almost any of these countries. And so what's going to happen? They're simply not going to be able to pivot fast enough. So it's not a question of will they go out of business, it's a question of they will go out of business or become niche players unless governments bail them out. And if governments bail them out, they are again backing the wrong horse. They're going to dump billions of dollars into a dead horse, right? So it's just useless. So please, all the governments of the world, just toss them to the wind. I'm sorry, it's going to be very, very painful, but you've got to let these legacy manufacturers go, or else your country as a whole is going to become a niche player in the automotive industry. So who is going to manufacture your car in 2025 in that case? Well, I mean, you've got the United States, you've got Tesla. They are really about the only horse in this country that's going to be able to produce the number of cars necessary if things go well for them, right? I mean, Rivian, Lucid, Lordstown, right? Anyway, there are a lot of players that are coming online right now, but they're simply not going to be big enough by 2025. They may be producing 100,000 cars or something like that. That just isn't a dent in, say around 60 million cars needed in the EV market. So who else is left in that case? Well, as you might have guessed, it is China. China has so many EV startups. Now, many of them are going to fail, but there are going to be winners, and those winners are going to do what Japan did in the 1980s, except they're going to do it like to 11. They're going to actually come in and they're going to disrupt the world. They have everything set up for them. They're extremely nimble because they're under a fascist regime that can do anything they want to, and right now all they want to do is go electric and make their cities as clean as possible, but they also see in the future that they will be able to export this technology to the rest of the world, and they're going to become even wealthier than they are right now. Secondly, of course, in China, the labor cost is lower than in Japan or Germany or the United States, so that's a huge advantage. And third, they really don't have that big of an ICE legacy manufacturing, sort of culture or whatever. So they are all about the future, and that means that they are all about supporting these new EV companies as much as possible with an awful lot of government money. So again, Germany, the United States, Japan, you all should be supporting EV manufacturers as much as humanly possible. All those billions of dollars you're pouring into legacy and to oil to prop them all up for what's useless because it's going to be gone in 10 years, you should be pouring all of that money into EV startups, right? It needs to be startups. Disruption comes from the outside. It needs to be people who are on the outside looking in. Unfortunately, I think anybody who's starting after about right now, or probably about 4 or 5 years ago, is simply not going to be able to make a difference by 2025 or 2026. It just takes too long to ramp up car production. So really, it's all of these companies in the United States or in Germany or in Japan that are trying to disrupt things. So what my recommendation is, dump legacy as fast as possible from all government, subsidies or anything. Dump oil as fast as possible. Take all of that money and put it into solar and EV technology. That's what you need to do. Will any of these governments do that? I sincerely doubt it. Governments are so good at making bad decisions and sticking with the old way of doing things. And they're also in the pocket of people who are the rich people, even though they're all in debt right now. But basically, they're not going to do this. But if one of these countries does do this, they're going to come out and be the only other country really that is able to sort of compete with China. So my prediction in 2025 is that when you go to buy a car, the likelihood is you're either going to buy a Tesla if you're in the United States or Europe. And I don't know about China right now, because who knows whether Tesla is going to survive there or not. Hopefully they will, and hopefully they'll be a major player in China too. But certainly in China, you're going to almost definitely buy a Chinese-made car, even if that's a Tesla. But in the rest of the world, the odds are if you don't buy a Tesla, you're going to buy some sort of Chinese car. I don't know which company that's going to be, but one or two or a half dozen of these companies are going to become really, really big by 2025. They've got the supply chain locked down. They've got the mineral rights locked down. They've got the labor force locked down. They've got the labor costs locked down, and they've got the vision locked down. They are going to be the dominant auto manufacturers, certainly by 2030, if not by 2025. So everybody take heed. China is coming for your car industry, and if you don't take heed and do something right now, you're going to lose to them. All right, I hope you found this episode fun and informative and probably a little provocative. I can't wait to see what the comments are. Yikes. But if you disagree with me, try to back that up with numbers. I think I have a rational, data-based argument about this thing, so please try to back that up with numbers. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, definitely like it, and please do consider subscribing for more of this and hit the bell notification icon. Tomorrow, I should do something on AI Day, which will be much more positive than this episode was, and so definitely consider subscribing so you can catch that when it comes by. As always, of course, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for your support, and if you're interested in joining the club, definitely check out the link in the description. And for those of you interested in investing, check out WeBull, an amazing platform for buying and selling stocks, and now cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and others. Open an account and get a free stock valued at up to $200, and fund your account and get another free stock valued at up to $1,600. Check out the link in the description and help the channel at the same time. Thank you. And don't forget about our merch store, which now has "Physics is the Law, Everything Else is a Recommendation," which is a quote by Elon Musk, as well as other t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, etc., etc. Check it out in the description. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how clicking on a link and going shopping for a Tesla, a solar roof, a Powerwall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. And as always, feel free to ask me questions in the comments or at my email address, which is drknowitallknows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.